Hey everyone, it's Nico here with the Gulikit KK3 Max Controller. This was sent to me for review by the manufacturer, but the opinions in this video are all my own. Nobody is reviewing this prior to me uploading it, so just understand, with that disclaimer out of the way, that all of the opinions here are my own, even though the product was provided for review. So this is a Nintendo Switch controller that can also be used on Android and on PC as well. So I'm going to do a quick little unboxing of it, and then we'll get into the full review. So I already cut the seal on the bottom. We'll pop the top off here. And right off the bat, even though I haven't used the controller yet, I can tell you that this looks like a premium product. I mean, the controller comes in this hard case. So it's got this little tab here, flip it open. Looks very similar to an Xbox controller. It has spots for paddles on the back, and there's switches there. I don't know what those do. Then on the top, it's got the different icons depending on what you have it paired to, and then this is probably which player, but it feels like an Xbox controller. It's got a nice feel to it. And then also, this is pretty neat. In the case, they actually have spots for the dongle to connect it to wirelessly. I don't know what's supposed to go here. It's not included. But, you know, that's pretty cool. So it comes with the case, comes with the controller. They've also got the cable in here. And this must be the paddles and the buttons. Extra buttons, I guess. And then also the paddles, and they come in a nice little case too. So this is a pretty expensive controller, but it does feel like a premium product. And then there's a bunch of information here, a little sticker of the brand, showing you some other accessories and things. And then to update the firmware, how to use the gamepad tester and debugger. Also how to update the firmware. And there's this very thick manual that must have all different languages. There's English. Oh yeah, it's got all different languages. So let's just kind of peek what we got in here. Again, how to update the firmware. Here's the English. So this is telling you how to configure everything. And there's a lot you can configure here. There's the dead zone, the sensitivity, the star ring lighting effects. Does this light up? Oh, okay. So it's got a bunch of different lights as well. I don't think I would like that. I don't mind the controller light in the middle, but I'm not a big fan of a lot of lighting when I'm gaming, but yeah, so just a ton of different information in the manual as well. So in terms of the presentation and what they provide for you here, like, yeah, it's an expensive controller, but they give you a lot. Like, if you travel and you're bringing this with you somewhere, like, this case definitely feels like it's going to protect the thumbsticks when it sits in here. It's got these little cutouts, which are going to protect it. I like what's here, but now let's get to the review. So over the past week or so, I've really put the KK3 Max Controller through its paces. I've been working on a bunch of different reviews for games, and it was the perfect opportunity to really use this controller. So I played a lot of different games with this controller, and it definitely performed well all across the board. 2D games, 3D games, online games, literally every game I use this controller for, I really liked it. Now, this is advertised as a Nintendo Switch Pro Controller replacement essentially. And yeah, you can use this on the Switch, but I think for me personally, one thing I want to point out right off the bat is that this is a controller that I'm most likely going to use more for the other platforms and consoles that it works on than the Switch. I don't necessarily need a replacement for my Switch Pro Controller, and part of the reason for that is because this feels like an Xbox controller. And that'll kind of be complaint number one for me, is that that's a bad thing in a way, because my brain is like hardwired where that textured feel and the layout are similar to an Xbox controller. So when this is in my hands and I'm trying to play Switch with it, I found myself pressing the wrong buttons for the face buttons. You know, A, B, X, and Y are swapped between Xbox and Switch. And that was a struggle for me. Now, I'm sure if I used it long enough, I would get over that initial struggle. But I also want to tie that in and say that this controller definitely has an identity crisis, because everything that I connected it to did treat it like an Xbox controller, not a Switch controller. So when you connect it to PC or Evercade, for example, like, it thinks the B button is A and A is B. Like I just said, those buttons are flipped. And so if you're the type of player that has to look down at the controller when the game's telling you which button to press, you're gonna get confused because it's treating it like an Xbox controller, although it's a Switch controller. So that's my first complaint, is that this is a controller that is a Nintendo Switch controller, but it identifies as a Switch controller, and it's actually an Xbox controller. Then the other thing that I ran into initially that was a bit frustrating is I couldn't get this thing synced to my Switch. I tried wired, I tried wireless, I looked in the manual, I did what it was telling me to do, and what I was having happen, I guess, is that maybe there was some interference because I had my official Nintendo Switch Pro controller connected. So it wasn't until I turned that off and had no controller actively on to the Switch that this thing finally synced up. It was really weird to me that even plugging this in wired to the Switch while my Pro controller was on still didn't recognize this thing on the Switch. I don't know if that was an isolated incident for me, but hey, if you pick this controller up and you have the same issue, try doing that. Just turning the other controller off, and you should have no issue. Other than those two things, the controller having an identity crisis and the initial sync process, I absolutely do love this controller. It's a great feeling controller. It's very responsive. All of the buttons have a premium feel to it. And it's also just very familiar because it is so similar to the Xbox controllers that I use so much. I absolutely love that it works on so many different platforms. I tried this on so many different things, even platforms that it doesn't advertise it working on. So, like I said, I connected this to the Switch and used it a little bit. Again, don't think I'm going to use it there, but it does work on the Switch as advertised. Then I have two different PCs that I use. It worked on both. And first, I did wired. Of course it works. Use the USB-C port and plug the USB side into your PC. It recognizes it, worked right away. It also does come with a wireless dongle that once you sync the controller to it, it will be synced to that dongle no matter what you put it into. So that means that it worked on my other PC without having to resync. It also worked on my Evercade VS, which is crazy because I'm always looking for a better controller to use for the Evercade VS. The squarish controller that comes with that thing is awful and cramps my hand. So this is genuinely going to be the controller I use when I play Evercade now. And again, wired also works on Evercade. So if you're looking for a modern controller that's pretty fancy to use on the Evercade, this one fits the bill. Evercade treats this as an Xbox 360 controller, but not really a big deal. Then I even connected it to my phone through the Bluetooth. Hey, it connected. I didn't use it. I don't play mobile games, but if you do, you can even use this on your mobile device. And on the top of the controller, there is a button you double tap to switch which mode it's in. There's a Switch setting, there's PC, Android, and then dongle. It's really quick and easy to flip-flop between these. and that's great because you can use this on so many different platforms. Then in terms of the settings of this controller is highly customizable. There are a bunch of different things that you can tweak. There's vibration settings and lighting settings, which tie into the haptics and vibrations. And it supposedly has a, gyroscope and works with Amiibo. I didn't test the Amiibo functionality. I don't really use Amiibo, but it does advertise that it has that. And depending on what these settings are set to, also affects the battery life. They do advertise 15 to 28 hours, depending on the light settings and vibration and all that sort of stuff that you have on. Obviously, having lights on all the time are going to drain the battery a little faster. I've been using this thing for an entire week on a single charge. So I would say that 20 plus hours for no lights on, that's pretty accurate. If you were wondering if there are any visual options in terms of the KK3 controller, yeah, there is a few different options. Controller I was sent for review is the black version. There's also a white and a light gray one. And then there was even this like Game Boy looking color scheme. I don't really know why they picked Game Boy, but hey, it's there if you are into that type of aesthetic. This was a really great controller that I can easily recommend, but it's definitely for those of you that are willing to have some initial frustrations and tinker with some settings, especially since when I was researching the controller, I noticed a lot of reviews on Amazon. They complained about the buttons double hitting. And the thing I want to say about that is that there's also an auto fire setting that you can tweak on the controller. And this was on, I think, by default for me. So the first game I actually played with this thing was Tetris 99, which ended up being perfect because I was like, why are the Tetris pieces double spinning? Did I actually turn something on? Yeah, auto fire was on, so it was causing double hits. I don't know if these other users were experiencing the same thing and didn't look at the manual, but this is the type of controller that's for those of you that play games on multiple platforms and you want one controller to share across those platforms. And additionally, for those of you that don't mind tweaking some settings. If you're looking for a Switch controller to just, take out of the box, you plug it in or you sync it up, boom, you're ready to go. This is not going to be a controller for you because it does take some tinkering in order to get it in that sweet spot for comfort and accessibility that you're looking for in your gaming experience. But I am pleasantly surprised. There is always the possibility that maybe this thing breaks within a few weeks or a few months. Obviously, I'm not going to wait a few weeks or a few months, and this is more of a review based on my first 20 plus hours of using this thing, but I think it's fantastic. I love the included case that comes with it. It even has the shortcuts on the front of it in case you travel with it perhaps. There's even a cutout so you can charge it while it's in the case. There's a little holster for the dongle inside the case. Like, they thought of a lot of different things to make this as appealing as possible, and I am really pleased with that. So I'll have a link in the pinned comment if you're interested in checking this controller out on Amazon for yourself. I am not sponsored in any way. This is not a sponsored link. It's just to help you find the controller in question if you're interested in picking it up for yourself. If you have any questions on this controller that maybe something I didn't touch upon, let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to answer it from my experience with it. If I have any updates, if I run into any issues with this controller after I release this review, I will also add that into the pinned comment below the link. But hopefully you found this review helpful. This is my first time reviewing a controller on my channel, so I hope you enjoyed it. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time.